This is the live podcast with Manuel, living in full expression. The grip you have on the familiar right now is not coming from your logic. Your logic already knows what needs to change. This is coming from somewhere older than your logic. It's coming from a series of moments where uncertainty felt genuinely dangerous. Because your brain, your body is trying to protect you from the uncertainty, you're holding on to the familiar. The system had already created a loop for you to make decisions to stay close to what you already know. Because what is known, even if it is painful, at least has a shape you recognize. And this is one of the things that keep a lot of people stuck. You hear the saying that the devil you know is better than the angel you don't know. Things like this come from that state of being afraid, of having this fear. So whatever just came up for you, that's exactly where you need to start. Welcome to the live podcast with me, your host Manuel. And in today's episode, we're going to be talking about the two fears that stops lots of people from growing, advancing, and experiencing transformation in their lives. There are two major fears I've discovered in my experience as coaching people that have stopped lots of people from taking the next step in their lives. And those two fears have kept people in their comfort zone for too long. So those fears is what we're going to be dealing with today, and how to overcome those fears and come out with results that you're proud of. So if you're ready, let's get started. I want to start this episode by sharing with you an experience that made me to want to talk about these two fears. It's what I experienced last week, and I thought to share that with you today. So I've created this workspace, and this workspace is helping me produce my podcast, and it gives me what I want. This particular day, I was trying to use this same workspace, and it was not working. I tried everything I could. I allowed it for some time and I got back to it, but it still wasn't working. I was persisting. I knew quite all right that it's not going to work based on some technical knowledge I have about this workspace, but I was persisting because two things were going on in my mind that I later discovered based on my experience in coaching people, and I'm going to share that with you shortly. So after I had persisted, I stayed there, was frustrated, trying everything. And then time was going also because I needed to produce the podcast for that week. But then here am I, struggling with this tool, trying to see if it works, even when I knew quite okay that at this point, from every possible signals I've gotten from this workspace, that it has gotten to the limit of its functionality, but I kept on pushing. And I asked myself, being a coach and having helped lots of people, I knew what was going on. And these were the two things that were going on. Number one was the pain of building again. I told myself, I've spent so much energy building this workspace, and now having to replicate this same, workspace to produce what I'm already used to was the pain that was in my head. And I was hoping and wishing that this particular workspace that is not working now can work so that that pain of starting again will not be there. That was the pain number one. And the pain number two, or rather the fear of number two in code, I'll put it, was that of uncertainty. If I create another workspace, would it give me what I'm experiencing or what I'm getting from this particular one, which is no more working? Because these two were the two things that were stopping me at this point, and I was hoping that this old one works. Now, look at these two things I've mentioned, the fear of starting again and the fear of uncertainty, or the pain of starting again and that of uncertainty, not being sure. You see that practically in our lives. You see that play out in several ways. So I stood there wishing and hoping that what I knew was no more serving me would work because of what I was familiar with it. It was a terrain I've built, a workstation I've worked on. I've spent time and energy to do it. And I know this could sound familiar to you. Maybe there are some projects you have done, some things you have gotten familiar with, and now it is painful for you to leave it and move on. You think about the time wasted, the energy invested, the money invested, and it's hard for you to move on. And you are stuck in that particular place, hoping that it works for you, even when you know deep inside of you that this is no more working. I will tell you what happened afterwards, but let's look at this in reality. Look at your life right now. What is that exactly that you know that is not serving you, that you know that why you were there is not because you know that this is serving you, but because you have thought of the fear of the unknown? What is holding you is the pain of starting over again, and you rather stay with where you are familiar with than to take a step to explore new opportunities. I want you to pause and think about it. And I know there are loads of them in your life right now, and that's why this episode has come to help you to understand that those things that are no more serving you, you need to let go of them. And I'm going to help you in this episode on the practical steps you need to take to be able to move on and let go of those things that are no more serving you. Like I said, I'll get back to what I did and what happened next. But let me share with you a personal experience I had with one of my coaching clients. He came to me. Actually, somebody referred this client to me who have worked with me and have gotten transformation, and through my referral system, referred this person to me. When I was doing the finding out, the questioning, I was able to spot what was going on with this particular person. First, there were some issues that have piled up, that have built a particular way of approaching situations. And this has also built in this person resentment. So when I was working with this client of mine, while we're digging deep, I made him to see the impact of these states, this thing he's holding on to, the impact on his children, because he was already transferring this behavior, the energy that comes from this to his children. And he was so shocked. He said, I never thought this is really affecting my children, my family. And I said, yes, because you felt that this had built a familiar space for you. But then something interesting happened. So when I tried to make him see the need to let go of this and embrace a new way, he saw the possibilities, but then he said something. He said, it's difficult for me. I'm not sure I'm going to leave this thing and start building a new identity. And I was shocked. Why not? Based on what we've gone through right now, you have seen the need for you to let go and move forward, because apart from this particular resentment, there are other things that have also affected their mindsets, that have created limiting beliefs that are already affecting even their jobs and the way they show up. He saw all this, but he said those words. He said, it's difficult for me because starting out fresh again to build new identity will take loads of energy, loads of time, and I'm already familiar with what I'm doing, and it's giving me the kind of protection and result I needed. And this is someone who had seen the impact of what this is costing them to their family, but they don't want to move forward. So having said this, I discovered that sometimes in life we prefer to remain where we're familiar with. The regular saying where people say the devil you know is better than the angel you don't know. Whenever you hear that statement, it's coming from these two pains of building up again or the uncertainty. And you see this play out in several places. Someone can be in a job that is not serving them. There's no growth for them. They're not experiencing any form of growth. It's not serving their purpose. But because of the fear of the unknown, they rather stay in this job, in this toxic environment, because of the fear of what happens if I leave this job and get another one. I get another one. Why not just manage myself here? And you know it, that in this particular state, in this particular job, you have looked at it, you know deep inside of you that this job is not serving you anymore. but you still stayed. I was listening to Brian Tracy, one of his books. He was talking about a lady who she had this person she wanted to get married to, and this guy drinks a lot, sometimes abuse her, and was not ready to marry her. They have been together in that relationship. It was abusive for her. This guy drinks, and a lot of things she was not comfortable with, but she stayed. After she had spoken to the guy to stop drinking, to stop some of these things and let them settle down, and even gave him a deadline, and they couldn't continue. And at a point, they separated as she got another person. And then this young man came back to her begging, I'm going to change. I've had a new life. Right now, anything you want me to do, I'm going to do it, And she felt, I've known this guy for a long time. If he's going to change, because that's the only thing I need from him to change, from drinking, from the way he has been living. And I think he's a repentant person. And after he had begged her, she said, okay, fine. The devil you know is better than the angel you don't know, because this new relationship, I'm just starting it. I'm going to be investing energy again. I'm going to be investing time into this new relationship. So instead of doing that, why not I go back to this person? After all, he's a changed person. And then she left that relationship, the new one, and went back to this guy. Few days down the line, the guy went back to the old habits. And at this point, the lady felt, well, I'm here already. I could just stay, because before she came back, he had told her that they're going to get married as soon as she returns. Now, 2 years down the line, 3 years down the line, no marriage. The same habit continued, but she couldn't leave anymore because she was like, I'm here now. So this same thing you see happening in people's life. You are stuck in that relationship. You are stuck in that job. You are stuck, because of what people say. You are stuck because you are thinking about the pain of having to start over again. You are concerned about, will it work? Will I still find peace? Would I still find this to be another familiar place for me? Now think about the last time you relocated to a new place. For some people, they never had anyone who welcomed them, who made them feel at home before they acclimatized to the environment. They moved on their own. People moving to bigger cities and all of that. I'm sure the day you packed your bag and you were ready to go, you had that uncertain feeling, but you took that step. Okay, so back to the story of my episode. Now, something happened after I had spent so much time on this. I decided to build a new workspace. And amazingly, what happened was that this new workspace produced far better output for me than the previous one. And I was amazed. In fact, it gave me a tool and a product that is worth more than anything. Now, look at the picture. I was afraid on the other side. And after persisting, and knowing that this was not serving me, I took the step and I transitioned. I took the pain, built another workspace, and that workspace produced for me a far better quality output than the former one. So when I got that output, it brought to mind what happens when you take that step of faith, that leap. Because the process of building again gives you new perspective, gives you an opportunity for growth, takes you from your familiar place to explore. And that was what I experienced. So look at your life and ask yourself, what is it that I've been posting away? What is it that I've been procrastinating on to take action on? What is it that I've been stalling to take action on? So I'm going to do something with you right now, and I'm going to ask you some questions, and I want you to sit with those questions, and if you can write them down or you can note them down, that will be a beautiful step for you to take. So question number 1 is this. I want you to ask yourself, right where you are right now, I don't want you to rush the response. In your life, what is the thing you are staying in, holding on to, or continue to use that you already know is not working? I don't mean what you suspect that might not work. I mean what you already know. Like in my own story that I told you, I already knew that the workspace was not going to work. What is that you're holding on to and you are continuing to use and you know it's not working? I want to just sit with that. Now, here's the second question. Imagine letting go of this particular thing. This particular thing could be a relationship, could be a job, it could be something that has been holding you down. I want you to imagine yourself letting go of it. How does it feel like? I want you to notice the feeling. Do you feel a tightness in your chest? I want you to notice it, acknowledge it. If it's a kind of low-level dread in your stomach, I want you to also notice it. If that comes actually closer to relief, I want you to also notice it. All of all this, are all information and data you need. That information is telling you something about the weight of what you've been carrying around because it's familiar. It tells you exactly how much energy it has been costing you to maintain that. Here's the third question. Where did you learn that releasing something before you had a guaranteed replacement was not safe? I don't mean in those words actually, but when did you first absorb that message? Where did you first experience what it feels like to let go of something familiar and have it go wrong? And where did you watch someone else do it and decided the risk was not worth taking? Now, this is also another information. What this simply means is that you picked this up somewhere and you have internalized it as a standard for you. So I wanted to sit with it and remember what were the times where you saw this play out. Now I'm going to ask you the next question, which is the fourth one. What evidence exists in your own life? Not what you hope might be true, not what you hope to be true. I mean, what you are trying to convince yourself about, documented in your experience, that where you stepped into something unknown and it was worth it. Think about it. Maybe it could be moving to a new city. Maybe going to your first school, you were uncertain, you're having the fear. Think about it. What are those things you took step despite the fact that you knew you're not sure of the outcome, whether or not it will work, but you took the step anyway? Now, because those evidence prove to you that fear is only a mirage, because your comfort zone is costing you growth, it's costing you advancement, and you can't keep staying there. The fear tells you it's risky, it's not worth it. Your history tells you the story. Don't take a step forward. Mr. A and B did it and couldn't succeed. But your story is not theirs. They have their uniqueness. You have your own uniqueness. That fear is only there to stop you. And interestingly, those fears could be imagination, what you have built in your mind. So I want to challenge you this week to take that step. I don't mean that you should be reckless, but actually, you know deep inside of you that the only reason you're staying where you are right now is because it's familiar and you know it is not serving you. I think it's time. Why not you take the step? Now, so here are the moves I want you to make in order for you to deal with these fears. Number one is I want you to name what you're actually protecting, not what you say you're protecting. Because when you cling to it, the familiar, they are usually dressed in reasonable languages. We call it prudence, we call it strategy, you can call it not being reckless. But underneath that language, there's almost always one of two things: a loss we are afraid to admit, and the identity that we have built around the current version of our situation. So your action here is to ask yourself, what would walking away from this cost me in terms of how I see myself? Not practically, I mean identically. Who would I be if I were not the person who stayed, who held on, who made this work? That question, if answered honestly, will show you what you are currently and actually protecting. Move number two is to audit the true cost of the familiar. And this one is practical and it matters a lot. I want you to sit down, not in your head, but on paper or in a document. And I want you to write out as specifically as you can what staying in this current situation is costing you. Not vaguely, I mean specifically. Your time, your energy, your relationship, your growth, your sense of yourself. I want you to write out what you imagine you might lose by leaving or changing after you have listed what this is costing you. Because if you don't take inventory of what this is costing you, you will not see the urgency for you to commit to change and transformation. Then I want you to compare these two lists. What you will almost always find is that the cost of staying is both larger and more certain than the cost of changing. The risk of the unknown feels large because it is vivid in your imagination. The cost of the familiar feels smaller because you have adapted to it. But adaptation is not the same as zero cost. It just means you have stopped noticing it. So here's the move number three. Take the smallest possible step into the new before you feel ready. This is very important. You can start by taking baby steps because the waiting to feel ready strategy has a near zero success rate for people who are genuinely embedded in the familiar. Ready to feel ready. Ready is a feeling that does not arrive before the action. It arrives because of the action. So I wanted to identify the smallest possible step you can take into the new situation Not a full commitment, not a full release of what you are holding on to. I mean, one small reversible step in the new direction. Because here's what happens for me. I did not make a giant decision. I did not commit to a full system overhaul in the middle of a deadline. I just created one new workspace, one step. And what I found on the other side of that one step was something I could not have access to where I was standing. So you do not need certainty before you move. You just need one tiny step, one small step. So let me close this with the 3 things I want you to take from today's episode. Number 1 is this: the familiar is not the same as the safe. Familiarity is just a feeling. It is comfort speaking out loud. It is recognition. It is the sensation of knowing what to expect. Safety is about whether something is actually serving your growth, your health, your relationship, your potential, your personality. And I want you to know that those two are frequently not the same. But confusing them is one of the most expensive mistakes most people make. Number 2, your habitation is not evidence that the move is wrong. It is evident that the move is significant. The resistance you feel at the edge of something new is proportional to how much the familiar has shaped your identity. It does not mean stop. It means that this is the real work. And number 3, the next version of you is not accessible from where you are currently standing. It is on the other side of the release. This is where growth is. Not the full committed, want everything down release. I mean just the next step, the next action, the workspace you have not created yet, the conversation you have not started, the version of your life that is waiting just past the edge of what you currently know. If today's session brought something to the surface for you, something named, something you have been carrying without language for it, I want you to take the next step. Premium worksheet in this episode is your companion for doing that in writing at depth on your own time. And also, if this episode landed for you, I want you to share with one person in your life who is holding on to something that is no longer serving them. Sometimes the most powerful thing you can do for someone is hand them the language for what they have not been able to name. This has been the Live Podcast with me, your host, Manuel. And until I come your way in our next episode, keep living in full expression.